Hey everybody, Scotty the Trainer here, and welcome to Scotty the Trainer Tuesdays. Thank you so much for joining me. I wanted to talk to you today on the subject of do you have any thoughts? Question mark. Do you have any thoughts? So let's talk about thoughts for a moment. Did you know, I'm sure you did, that no action ever comes to pass? No action ever becomes manifest without it first coming as a thought. It has to start in the head. It's got to start with a thought process. I'll give you a little interesting look at this. Practicalities. Have you ever sat down to watch television? Maybe you just ate. You're not really that hungry, but you see a commercial for something like ice cream or a candy bar or something like that. And you see it, and then the next thing you start thinking is, I could go for a candy bar right now. I could go for a Reese's. I could go for Milky Way, whatever. I could go for a Frosty from Wendy's or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, because you started thinking it, the next thing is you move to the next section, which was you started acting on it. You acted on the thought that's there. Whenever I used to do a lot of counseling, especially when I was doing religious work all the time, I can remember counseling with people, and there's nothing more heartbreaking than two people that are either dating each other or engaged or even married, and one of them has had infidelity. And at some point in the counseling session, you look at the man or the woman or whoever, and you say, are there any questions that you want to ask your significant other before we move on? And they ask the question, doesn't matter who they are, how old they are, how long they've been together. They say, why did this happen? And many times I heard this, well, I didn't mean for it to, it wasn't supposed to, it just happened. It just happened. It didn't just happen, because every action starts from up here. It starts as a thought. Now, here's the thing about thoughts, and it's very, very easy to say this. It's very, very difficult to work against it and put it into practice. It's very easy to say this. Thoughts come to everybody. Good thoughts, bad thoughts, crazy thoughts, thoughts that make no sense whatsoever. They come to every person. You, me, the man down the street, the truck driver, the CEO. Thoughts come. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent. The practicalities are that just because there's a thought in your head, there's nothing anywhere that says you have to act on the thought. There's nothing that says just because you look at somebody and they make you mad enough, you go, man, I'd really like to throttle them right now. I'd like to just ball up my fist and give them a throat punch. Well, that's a thought, but you don't have to act on it. Now, you can go on YouTube and find many videos where people have done that. Before they balled up their fist and gave someone a throat punch, in their head it was rolling over. Punch them, punch them, punch them, punch them. And they acted on the thoughts. Now, here's the fact of the matter. All of us have thoughts that come into our head throughout the course of a day. Thousands of thoughts that come into our head that we think about. Things that we should do, things that we didn't do, things that we know we should do, things that we want to do but we don't do. All of that starts with the thoughts. We as adults have to be mature enough to decide which thought do I let go, which thought do I hang on to, which thought do I acknowledge I'm having the thought, and then we move on past it. There are people that deal with obsessive thoughts. My oldest son, who's 19, just recently turned 19, and is in college to be a minister, he, as having Asperger's syndrome and being on the autism spectrum, he has obsessive thoughts. I'm afraid that I gave that to him because as I get older, I begin to realize I have obsessive thoughts many times in my life. And so in dealing with obsessive thoughts, it's something that gets stuck in your head. And that's why he would have conversations with me over and over and over again as part of his condition and as part of his obsessive thoughts. He would have thoughts as well to where he would get angry and want to just burst out, which he did when he was much smaller. But over time, as he grew, he realized that not every thought required for him to act on it. And if there are people out there that are dealing with obsessive thoughts many times come as scary thoughts, as catastrophe setups. That the thought is saying, oh, you better do something about it, you better do something about it, you better do something about it now. But overcoming obsessive thoughts a lot of times is being able to acknowledge, yes, I'm having this thought, and then two, no, I don't have to act on it. Now, it's very simplistic in the answer that I'm giving. It's very, very, very simplistic. I understand that. It's more difficult to put it into practice. But these are great questions to ask ourselves as the thoughts come into our minds every single day. You know that you need to go to work. The alarm clock goes off. The thought says, hit snooze. We make the decision to do that or not. If you snooze long enough, the thought says, I just call off for the day. We have to make the decision to do that or not. Now, you say, man, I wish I would stop thinking that, because if I didn't think it, I wouldn't do it. And that's very true. But what happens is we are then at that point connecting our reactions to our thoughts, saying, if I think it, then I got to do it. And that is not true. If we could ever grasp the fact that whenever a thought comes into our mind, we realize we are responsible for either acting on the thought or not acting on the thought. You know, I remember one time speaking in a group, and a lady said to me, she said, oh, that was a great message that you gave. And she said, I enjoyed it so much. I said, oh, well, great. I'm glad to hear that. I appreciate that. She says, what applied to me, I grabbed it and I pulled it in. And what didn't apply to me, I just ducked and let